together. And Charley did fight in the struggle against apartheid, as Joe mentioned. He organized what was called the Freedom Ride against apartheid. And then he did something that won him some friends and a lot of enemies. He brought a case against the University of Toronto allowing the ambassador from South Africa, the apartheid ambassador from South Africa, to speak on the campus publicly. And a lot of people said, what about free speech? But Charley said, he's an international criminal. Apartheid is a crime against humanity. This man represents that criminal enterprise and shouldn't be allowed to speak. Yep. Well, the judge dumped all over him, and the Globe and Mail had 4 articles within a week dumping on him. But Charley persisted. This was a criminal organization, not a company or anything else, not a noble government. It was a criminal organization and shouldn't be allowed to have a man like that going around. What he was doing, you may recall, was trying to oppose the divestment movement. Yes. He was saying, things aren't so bad in South Africa, you should continue to invest in it. But Charley stood his ground and was very courageous in doing so. Charley was a really joyous and energetic person. Those of you who saw him would remember that. There's a word, ebullient, that I like to think of when I think of Charley. I don't think of anybody else that way, but Charley was definitely ebullient.
You see,
yeah, but we want to do the same thing as you.
Of course, but your positions.
He remained very positive even after he had a brain cancer and he had various disabling symptoms of that cancer. He was still Charley Roach, the positive, optimistic, wonderful human being. Now, what I like to suggest to people, and you seem to be people, is that you get on YouTube and put in Charles Roach and see what you get. You'll get some speeches by Charley, and you'll get him singing a few of his songs, one of which I particularly like is Free the Land from Bigotry. Listen to Charley sing that. There are 2 versions on the internet, one from when he was already quite ill and one from a couple years before. So look for both of them and compare. Now, you can also find on the internet one of his last interviews. It was originally broadcast on CBC, and it was when he was very ill. But he was talking about his last great fight, his fight to abolish the citizenship oath required to the Queen of Canada, Queen of England, Queen of Canada. Why should we have to swear allegiance to a queen to become a citizen of Canada, Charley said. And he could not do that in good conscience. And he didn't do it, and he paid the price. He was offered a judgeship, but he would have had to swear allegiance to the Queen for that, and so on. He paid the price. And you should really listen to him explain his case on YouTube. Now, in my opinion, the most important consequence of naming a public place after someone is so that people will remember what they did and be inspired by it in the future, right? That's the point, presumably. Well, who should be more inspiring to future people? Charley Roach or a Queen Elizabeth? It's obvious it's Charley Roach, right? So what I propose is that in addition to this naming here today, we rename Queen Elizabeth Way, Charley Roach Way. Now you may be worried that people will confuse the 2 things, the way and the laneway, but people will figure that out, so there's no reason to object to that. So I invite you to join the new movement, change Queen Elizabeth Way to Charley Roach Way. Thanks very much.